Hey Landavand, this video is about how to deal with grief. Maybe you know someone that is going through a really hard time with the loss of a loved one. Maybe you yourself are going through the loss of a loved one. These are things that I wish I knew. This channel is all about authentic connections, practical tools, and real stories. And this video about grief is going to have all three of those. First, we're going to talk about what is grief? What does it feel like? And what does it mean? I'm also going to give a few practical tools that may help as guidelines for yourself and others as they're going through this experience. This video is part of the series called Insights from the Middle. So this is for both adults and for kids, things that I want my kids to know and for them to understand, even though the topic may be a little bit beyond them at the moment. Still really good information and reference. What is grief? Love that has nowhere to go, and sadness that you're never going to see that person again. It's those two pieces fighting with one another. It's putting those two things in a blender and just mixing them up all the time. And it is messy. There's a lot of intense emotions. Well, it's all intense emotions with any combination of those two. And so for siblings, it's really hard because they were part of your childhood. And so when they're not there, it's hard to imagine a world without them, because for me, I'm the younger sister. And so my brother was always there. From the moment that I was born, he was always there. So to have a life where he's not present on this earth, that's really hard. This year is especially hard because it's an age that he never got to. The second question I wanted to answer was, how does grief work? I'm going to explain this in an analogy of the ball in a box.
The ball represents grief. The box represents all the memories of that person. When a person dies, this ball of grief goes into the memory box. The only problem is that there is one wall that is pain. In the beginning, the ball is huge. You can't move the box without the ball hitting the flames. It rattles around and hits the flames over and over again. And you can't control it. It just keeps hurting. It seems almost unrelenting. Over time, the ball gets smaller and it hits the flames less and less. But when it does, it hurts just as much. It's better because you can function day to day more easily. The downside is that the ball hits the flames when you least expect it. It could be a song that you hear, it can be a funny joke, it can be anything that triggers a memory, and it happens randomly. And that's the thing with grief. It never really fully goes away. Over time, the memory box gets bigger as you have other memories that come into your life. Over time, the ball gets smaller and the grief gets smaller. But that ball still hits the flames every so often, and it's unpredictable, and grief never really goes away. I first saw this ball in a box analogy on social media from a forwarded tweet by Lauren Herschel. It was really amazing to have that put into words.
So let's say you lost a laptop and your laptop has all of your information in it. You saved tons of pictures on it. You saved a lot of your work on it, a lot of your maybe kids' papers from school and your notes from different things. So when you lose something like that laptop, it sucks, right? So it sucks in that your whole life is on there, or a lot of it. But you know what you can do? You can get another laptop. You can recover those files. You can put more things into a new laptop. And for the most part, it will have the same functionality and it will have the same features so that it doesn't feel as bad when you lose that laptop. That's not how it works with people. And so there is no point in time where it's like, oh, I have a replacement, and so everything's okay. It doesn't work that way. There's no amount of time that goes by where that person is replaced. And so when people say, well, you know, that person passed away 5 years ago, why isn't he or she over it yet? It's really not the right way of thinking about it, because unless that person is replaced as that same person, It's never going to go away. That loss is never going to be recovered like you would recover a laptop. How do I explain what grief feels like? And I thought a lot about this because I wanted to explain it to my kids. So here's what I came up with. My best analogy is that you are getting ready for the day. You are doing the things that you normally do. You brush your teeth, you brush your hair, you put on clothes, grab your bag, and then you head out the door. And as soon as you take one step outside of your front door, gravity no longer exists. I use that analogy because the people in our lives give us a part of our identity, and they also give us a part of an anchor. Whether it's a parent that you talk to about life things all the time, or it's a sibling that you grew up with and you have a shared childhood, or it is a spouse that you know so well and that you committed to a certain life together, that person anchors you in some way. There are expectations that you have of life because of that person. And what it makes you do, it makes you question everything else that seems so standard in life that you didn't even know you counted on. It makes you wonder, okay, so if I'm floating in the air, does that mean that other things have changed too? Does that mean that the sun is not going to rise tomorrow? Because now the world makes no sense. All the sense that you had when the person was there has been lifted. It throws people that are grieving into a huge tailspin because that person not only anchored you, they also gave you some sort of identity and expectations for life. It's going to be a big feeling of missing. You're missing someone, something. You're missing the behaviors that go with that person. And that's hard. Try going into a diet and just not having your regular cup of coffee. That's a small change in terms of not doing something daily that you're used to doing. So here comes the practical tips. These are the 3 things that I have come to realize in the last 3 years trying to navigate this sea of grieving. It's taken me definitely many sessions of grief counseling. It's taken me time with friends that have been through a similar loss and talking about what we're thinking, what we're feeling, how we're going to move forward. It's taken a lot of effort to really come up with these tips that I can share them with you. So the first tip is it's okay to remember the person. This is the first one because when you're first grieving and in that mode, all the memories are painful. Even if they're happy memories, they're painful to think about. They're painful to remember because you know that there's not going to be any more of them. And so as time has gone on, one of the things that I've learned is that it's okay to remember them. You can talk about the person. It's okay to talk about them to someone else. And I'm still working on this with talking to my kids about my brother. I haven't told them all the funny stories about our childhood. I haven't told them all the fun things about his personality so that they can still get to know him even though he is no longer here on earth. And that's one of the things that I think people shy away from is talking about the person because they're like, ooh, it's a taboo topic. I don't want to make them sad. I don't know how they'll react. But I think it's worse when you don't talk about them. I think it's worse when you go through a time frame where everyone seemingly tries to forget and not bring that person up. And to me, and I don't want to forget him. I don't want my kids to not know him. So that's the first practical tool, is that it's okay to remember him. It's okay to talk about him. It's okay to think about him. And for those folks that have never been through grief, ask the person, like, hey, do you want to talk about him? Do you want to share stories? I'm happy to be there for you and do that with you. People don't do it often enough. So I think it is a bit of a brave way to go to expand your support for someone that is grieving. The second practical tool is the idea that it's okay to move forward in life. How sad you are does not define how much you love that person. And it's taken some time to gain momentum on this, to put my life together and to move forward and to not let that define me. And so that goes back to the big why in terms of intentional living for my video that I'll put a link to up here, is that time is not guaranteed and time is limited. So recognizing that, it makes you reconsider how you look at the timeline. And the last practical tool that I have is that it's okay to feel sad. Lean into the sadness. Think about the memories. Have a good, ugly cry. Let those emotions out. I have had so many good, ugly cries, and part of the difficulty is that at first, I didn't want to have my kids see me cry. I didn't want to expose them to my sadness and my grief. Almost a year to really cry in front of my kids and really explain to them why I was feeling so sad. The problem with that mentality is that they feel it, they just don't know what the heck is going on. Maybe four and 6. They were young and they didn't understand what was going on. And when I said to them, Mommy's really sad that I don't get to see my brother anymore because he died. The sweetest moments was that after I told them, they all sort of scattered. And I thought, okay, they're just giving me some time and some space. But what they did was they went to their rooms. They gathered their favorite blankies and stuffed animals. And as I was collapsed on the floor next to the laundry room crying, they surrounded me with their snuggly blankets, their favorite stuffed animals, anything that they could find that thought would make me feel better. And they said, Mommy, is that enough? Does that make you feel better? And so as I open my eyes and I'm crying and I'm looking around me, seeing all these things, it sort of warmed my heart that that's how they know to comfort, because that's what I do to comfort them. When I shared that with them and they had that reaction, it sort of made me also feel better. You know, it was comforting to have my kids comfort me when I was feeling so upset. Those are my 3 practical tools. That the first one, to recap, that it's okay to remember the person. It's okay to talk about them. It's okay to think about them. It's okay to do things that they used to do that you enjoyed together. The second practical thought is, or practical tool is, it's okay to move forward. That it takes some time to move forward, but it's okay to move forward. That tragedy does not define you, and you can and will be able to move forward. And then the third one for this practical tool is, it's okay to be sad. And I'm saying okay to be sad in terms of an ugly cry kind of sad. It's okay to fall apart with your kids. It's okay to share that experience and your emotions in a very honest and real way, even though it's scary and we as parents are supposed to not do that, or sometimes we feel or think that way. I think it was healthier as a family to really navigate through that together than trying to separate myself. And one of the things that I told myself as I was going through this experience is that it's never going to be the same, but eventually it will be okay. I had to tell myself that almost every day, sometimes almost every hour, to get me through to that next hour. Whatever that okay looks like varies by person, but eventually it will be okay. And I had to really remind myself that. Thanks for watching, Land of And I will see you in the next video. So if you found this video helpful, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification for future videos, and comment. Let me know what your thoughts are on my tools and tips.